So that leads me directly to our next speaker, Gabriele from Scania. Good to have you. Good to see you. And, you know, what a wonderful opportunity for you to just bring it on here.
Thank you, Magnus, and thank you, everybody. It's great to have the opportunity to talk to you. Before I share a few slides that I put together, just a little bit of introduction about myself and what I've been doing and what I'm doing in Scania. So I'm basically my fundamental value is trying to bridge the culture, the innovation culture of the startup world with that of corporations. I try to really bring the entrepreneurship and way of working of startups and entrepreneurs into large corporations, because I fundamentally believe that corporations have all the possibility to actually be very good at creating new businesses and scaling them, but they lack the culture because they are optimized for running businesses that are well known, right? But if you infuse a bit more entrepreneurship into corporations, they should be the best environment to scale new businesses. And they definitely and desperately need to do that. And I've been doing this. I've been building venture building organization and innovation organizations in large corporations since 18 plus years now. I have a background as a scientist, but soon after a few postdocs, I have decided to move into the corporate world and doing innovation. So let me share. Let's see if I'm capable. There, share, and put in here.
We see it. Great.
Fantastic. So I'm gonna give you just a bit of a history of what I've been the path to create what is called Scania Ventures, and now it's been moved into an organization that's called Venture and New Business within Scania. But I think the same path is true for many large corporations that are really trying to look into corporate venture building as an option to stay relevant in the market. And as you all know, of course, we have the change in the market is very, very fast, and as an incumbent you have to deal with a lot of different disruptors, right? Because there is technology coming up, there is new business model introductions, and customer needs and trends that are constantly and really in a fast paced fashion really attacking your traditional business from different angles and with a completely different speed. And so obviously you want to be able to keep your competitiveness in the market. And everybody knows this. Every product you launch in the market has a cycle, and what you want to make sure to is to get the decline of the of one product life cycle coincide with the scaling up of a new product. So you want to become an high performer and make sure that you can surf the wave of new trends and business models and technology to stay relevant. But this is fundamentally a challenge for large corporations because of their culture. And because of the speed changes is coming with. This is, of course, something that you probably most have seen. And in the last few years, we have seen the introduction of new technology going faster and faster. And then ChatGPT is the latest example of that, with an uptake of technology that has been incredibly fast. Within a month they had millions and went very, very fast to 100 million users. And but this is very complicated to cope with for large corporations because of the internal processes and the culture. And also because they have to deal not just with disruptions. It's much easier in a way to actually start new businesses from scratch and really enter the market. when you have to deal with different phases of businesses in the same organization, this becomes complicated. And large corporations, of course, are optimized for running their current business, but also trying to do incremental innovation, trying to serve their customers with in a slightly different way. So they have a transformation ongoing as well. And when you have to deal with those two, it's already difficult enough to actually make the organization do transformational business. And doing disruption is very complicated. I always said that there is an internal antibody system in large corporations that really prevent the disruption from within approach. And so what we realized in Scania was that we needed to build what is called an ambidextrous organization. So an organization that can keep working on scale and productivity, so really using the corporate power, but also have the agility of a startup and working with speed and creativity. And of course, the end target is to these two ways of working and cultural aspects really be merging inside one new culture of the organization. This is the optimal situation, but it's a large endeavor when it comes to transforming the culture of a big company. And so we started looking at what are the different vehicles that we had to really start working more in the entrepreneurial and creative way, and really try to be competitive in the market with new offerings and new business models. So we both wanted to address new technology, but also doing business model innovation. And of course, we started looking at the different options, and as you know, there are the traditional ones, M&A, R&D, and corporate VC that are well understood, and companies like Scania have been working in those, have traditionally been very good, especially, for example, in R&D. And then we started looking, okay, but can we work together with incubator or accelerators? Can we work together with venture builders? And we realized that if we wanted to be more aggressive and having a long-term impact, we needed to do more venture building. And we actually looked inside ourselves and started understanding where did we want to play. And if you look at this specific graph here, you see that different approaches to venture building have different are optimized for different elements, right? So you have different things. You have what we call corporate venture building, which is fundamentally a venture studio, an internal venture studio, for example, or potentially a venture studio in collaboration with external parties. You have venture client programs. You have the CVC aspects. You have the M&A. You have the collaboration with external accelerator and incubators. You have entrepreneurship programs, and then approaches like challenges and hackathons, and all of these have different targets. And so we looked in ourselves, and initially we said, okay, we want to have more and highest effect on transformating new businesses. And so we potentially Horizon 2. So we wanted to work originally mainly with Horizon 2 and Horizon 3. And so we said, okay, we already have a venture client program that we use through Combien Foundry, and we do have an entrepreneurship program for really trying to help the internal culture and trying to help the employees become more entrepreneurs. But we didn't have anything around corporate venture building. And so we said, okay, let's start a venture studio. and an internal venture studio, basically, and that's what we did. So as you might understand, this comes from a company that has that is renowned as a leader in terms of uh, process and quality of production and internal R&D. Our products are really premium, and so we started really looking at it from building a process and a way of working that could be really scaled. So we build a framework which you would recognize if you have worked with venture building or in accelerators. We started sourcing new business ideas from external partner, from internal Scania elements like R&D and the commercial organization. By just scouting startups outside and talking to VCs, trying to identify new business opportunities and new market opportunities out there. And then we have a process that actually analyzes those opportunities, and basically we decide if we want to invest. So what we have built is a venture building studio, which is completely internal. So we basically hire teams or individuals to build, to validate and build the ideas that we have decided to invest in. So it's internal employees or people hired internally just to do this. And then we work exactly as a normal incubator, right? So we do problem solution definitions, we do business design, we do an incubation, and the ideas that come into this can come at that different level of maturity, so they can enter this process at different level. And then we try to build the organization and the technology to actually scale, and we try to scale. Now we have been at this for 2 years, and we have launched a few businesses in the market. We have closed a lot of businesses and ideas that we have tried, and we have also in-source or done a spin into the rest of the organization with some of the ideas. So basically, the process looks like, we ideate, we decide to invest, we do metered funding to make sure that the different hypotheses in the businesses are validated together with the customers, and then we decide if we want to keep investing in that specific ideas on what is the best way to bring them forward. And to do that, again, we have a very structured approach with templates, with swim lanes on the process and everything, and we have a very structured governing function. So we govern this from a portfolio point of view, where we try to optimize all the different investments we have in the internal ventures. Each of the venture has a venture board that kind of decides the directions and supports the team to really validate in the fastest possible way all the different business assumptions that we have. And then we have a set of coaches that help in that. Now, as said, all this is great. Right? So we have a fantastic framework for doing this. And if you could just make computers or AIs work through that process, everything will be nice. But in reality, you have people, and businesses are made of people. And so it is there has been some great learnings, according to me at least, throughout this journey, and that's what I wanted to focus a little bit of, as I call it, cultural clashes, right? You do have these two aspects in large corporations. You have the scale and productivity, which is a normal way of working in large corporation, and then you want to infuse speed and creativity, and it's usually not going to be so easy because it's not the same people. It's different kind of resources, different kind of capabilities and experience, and so what are the main cause of clashes? And the main corner, and I have selected 5. We can discuss. There are so many different aspects of this, and one is the mindset, right? So traditional corporations are actually organizations that run on efficiency. They want to have a value predictability and really low risk in their business endeavors. And so the innovation organization part instead values creativity and has a high tolerance for failure, or should have a high tolerance for failure, and really values the iterative learning process. So these two mentalities are really clashing, and the only way that I have experienced to overcome this, especially if you want to eventually build this studio or an innovation culture that includes the full company, you really need to have that sponsored by the CEO and the board of the company. That I think it's fundamental. The board and the CEO needs to really push through the company that it is okay to have to develop new businesses with uncertainties. And so it's very important that a clear communication of the value and the purposes of both the normal business, but also the venture building organization is clearly understood by everybody, especially because they need to understand and respect that they can be part of the same success story, and only in that way you can really cut the silos, break the silos, and really make sure that the corporation can utilize all the power that it has for launching new businesses and scaling new businesses. The other element is, of course, the tolerance for risk. A lot of the employees that work in large corporations are really risk averse. They focus on minimizing the errors, also because they are evaluated by that on that level, right? And the large organizations are political organizations, and the reputation is very important. So it's, if you put corporate employees in doing something that can risk their reputation, typically they will not take risks. While you want a culture and you want an organization that is that accepts failures and learning by experimenting. So I think it's very important, especially when you look at it from the employee's point of view, to establish psychological safety. And I can give you one of the ways that I've tried to infuse this. It's really besides celebrating small wins and celebrating learning rather than the specific goals. It is really put a distance between the evaluation that you have on the people that run this new exploration and new ventures and on the venture itself. If you decide not to invest any longer into a specific venture, that doesn't mean that you are saying that the people are not good. So the business and the people needs to be evaluated in different ways, and you really need to help them understand that the individual employee success is not connected to the success of the business, or rather that the failure of the people has nothing to do with the failure of the business. Decision-making style is completely different. In the traditional organizations, decisions are hierarchical, and they are process-based and on data that are easy to acquire with clear metrics. While in the venture building part, decisions are made very rapidly with typically incomplete information, and this comes from the venture building team, so the people that are actually out in the market trying to prove the value of the venture, but also on the people that have to do the investment decisions. It's a lot of incomplete decisions, so you really need to be able to taking those decisions with little information. And so I think the way to manage this dichotomy is actually to have separate decision-making structures and having them work with autonomy. And then use governance framework that allow integration between the two. One of the strong opportunity that internal venture studios have is to use the scaling muscles of the corporation for accelerating scaling. However, you need to have a governance framework that allow for decision points where you say, okay, now this venture is going to be scaled by the regular sales organization. And so you need to be able to make the two systems, let's say, talk together and understand how to take that decision. So reward and recognition is another element. So the traditional organization has a reward system that actually really rewards short-term profit and meeting the short-term goals. But typically, new ventures and innovations have a long-term impact that is very difficult to measure. If you use the same KPIs to measure and reward the ventures and the teams for the innovative part as for the normal corporate operations part, you're gonna fail because you're gonna miss the long-term impact perspective. And so I think it's very important to actually, of course, develop recognition programs for operational excellence, but also for learning and innovative contribution. So you need to look into the right KPIs. There is no meaning in, for example, putting sales KPIs on a venture that is 6 months old, because you're gonna steer them in the wrong directions. Until they have found product market fit, there is no real need for having sales KPIs. I will put more things on the confirmation on the assumptions and the learnings. So you need to be very careful on how you steer the different ventures into a large corporations. Otherwise, you will just drive them into the wrong behavior. And the last one is leadership and authority. And I think it's very important to have leaders that understand both ways, the normal large corporation culture and the innovative one. And those are very hard to have, especially in the high levels of the hierarchy in corporations, because typically they have a corporate life up to that point. And so I think it's important to infuse leadership with external entrepreneurs and innovators from outside. And that was it. So for me, it's a lot of the process part is very important, but I think it's really important to consider the cultural aspects of this to make it successful.
Thank you so much, Gabriele. I think it's a very valuable presentation you were nice enough to share with us. So, and I have some insights in, in what you do as well. So I've always been quite interested in what you do. And I think I have one question for you myself, actually, and then Ingrid will give a question. But I have one question, which I think is fundamental in all corporate venturing kind of initiatives. When you or one company becomes successful with something they build, there always seems to be the same issue like we have like human beings when our kids are growing up. is the let go issue. Do you experience anything of that? So, would your company, let's call it, would they try to hang along with this startup when they actually leave one day, or would they like to say bye bye and take the money and good luck in the world from onwards? Is that a challenge for you?
Well, I think there is a challenge even before, right? There is a challenge of letting any seed ideas go. So even at the very early stage, the corporations tends to hold the potential future value very close, and they don't want to let go, and they don't understand that typically prevents that value to be realized. So my take is it's much better to actually be have a smaller, if you want, a smaller equity on a bigger market, right? Than just try to stay connected to that small market that you can realize by yourself. And that is one of the main aspects. So I think that is one of the problems why large corporation tends to build things internally rather than having open innovation. So what we have done so far, and we are evolving and maturing, right? Because we have the right understanding of these problems, but we are still very much internally focused. But I think that to really have the possibility to scale and to really have a big impact, we need to be much more open toward the external. So
Ingrid, you have a question.
yeah.
I do. Thank you very much. A lot of very good points. I'm a little bit acquainted with what you're doing. I met Albin Glass through a venture building sort of network thing, because I was previously in corporate venture building as well, or corporate venturing. And I think a lot of these cultural things that you're mentioning are so relevant, but rather it sort of really boils down to what you're mentioning last around the KPI. Because it's really easy to say that you understand that there are differences, but when it comes to KPI, it's really where push comes to shove, and whether or not you're actually able to have other KPI that are more attuned to startups or ventures is really sort of critical to make it sustainable. And I was wondering, because I found that to be the biggest challenge, the single biggest challenge where I was that there was sort of a sort of softly expressed understanding for a different culture in the venturing arm. But when it comes to the hard factors, like you mentioned, evaluating startups on revenue, I had to take a big fight to not be evaluated on revenue and EBITDA, which is completely absurd when you're investing in startups, right, or scale-ups. And so I was wondering, when you started out with Scania Ventures, was this something that the leadership already understood, or were you able to actually sort of convince them or sort of did they have an understanding either of the realities of corporate venturing in terms of KPI and sort of longer term impact on the financial statements? Or did they understand that they didn't understand? Or were you able to make them understand that they didn't understand?
So they had an understanding of the difficulties, yes. And as you understand, things in large corporation move, and then there is a constant transformation. So I push that kind of item very much because I completely agree with you that it's one of the key factors, especially in the early stages of the new ventures. You can measure the success on revenues and so there was an understanding. That doesn't mean that there was not an external pressure to measure it in a different way. And that's why I say that it's fundamental that the board and the CEO is sponsoring and it's fully on board with this different way of doing things, because they need to, these venture studios need to be protected by having to report on the same level as the other businesses, right? and so they need to measure progress in a different way, otherwise it doesn't work. Have we been completely successful in that? No, I think there is still cultural clashes in that, but we are aware of the challenge, I think.
For how long have you been running the Scania, or for how long has Scania Ventures been something around?
I together with Albin actually, and another person, we built this 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago we started, and I'm about to take another responsibility within Scania, but so 2.5 years, but in those 2.5 years we are on the third iterations, and now is a bit more closer to the core. Actually, it's less Horizon 2 and 3 and more 1.5, which I think it's interesting, of course, but it requires different approaches.
Yeah, I suppose it's hard to measure Horizon 3 in general, and it's also hard to measure early stage ventures. So having early stage ventures Horizon 3 is like doubly hard. So,
yeah, I agree.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Let's see. Well, before I actually really think you have to underline the thing you say over and over again, that you have to have the CEO, the management with you. I always say that they even have to show it with their body language. That's how important it is. Alvaro, you have a question.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Magnus. And thank you, Gabriele, for sharing many things that for most of us are so interesting in terms of understanding how many corporations, behave, think, and actually act. It's great to hear from you that, and I'm hoping that your next journey, still helps you within the organization. So 2 questions. The first one is, in terms of percentage, so I don't want to ask you the exact amount, but in terms of percentage, how much of the investment in terms of innovation goes inside in Scania in terms of R&D inside, and how much of the percentage of investment goes to journeys that are coming from outside, so for open innovation? You mentioned that the tradition, the history, and culturally, Scania has worked as a company endogamic. Many things are being created inside, and you are working towards changing that. But how is that balanced today? How much is invested in things coming out? How much inside?
So in terms of numbers, it's difficult to speak about those. However, so the external investments are done through 2 arms. So we have 2 incarnation of a CVC. Okay, one that is completely externally managed, and one that is internally managed and is supposed to actually bring more startup investments and collaboration with the rest of the company. And so, but Scania is a huge company when it comes to R&D budget. So all these investments, well, the externally managed is a huge fund, but the internally managed CVC is, it's peanuts with respect to what R&D spends, right? And the venture building part hasn't really, it's still starting to look on how to collaborate with external. So it's a journey. There is a clear understanding that we can't build everything in-house. We need to collaborate, but it's a slow process. That's from the venture and new business point of view. R&D has a lot of collaborations with external parties, with universities in testing technologies. They are the ones that use the most eventual client approach, and so there is a good understanding that collaborations with external parties are beneficial, and there is a lot of industrial PhDs programs and collaboration with universities. However, and numbers are hard to to share, and also in this context I wouldn't really know.
Thank you, Gabriele. That's what I was asking you about percentages, not the
Yeah,
total
I know,
amount, because
I know, but
I
but to
know.
be honest, it's very little, I suppose, because the R&D budget is so big. So
Good. So do you have any more questions, or it's almost time to close? We never run over, actually. That's one of the principles of things. So I just shut down the whole conference when it's time. We have time for a question here from, Ingrid is here again. No, it's applause. It was
I
not
was just applauding your timeliness.
That's great. Thanks. So if you don't have any more questions, guys, I'm so happy to have you here. I mean, if there is anything which is more difficult than venture building, and it's today to run a digital event. So, I had something like 45 guys who signed up after a lot of work, and I think we ended up with 16 or so in the call to that. But that's fine. I think that's what it takes to start a movement. So with all of that, thank you so much, and especially to the speakers. It's so nice of you to share your insight. That's kind of the fundamental way of getting things going. And good luck onwards, Gabriele. I'm waiting to listen more detail what you're going to do next. Thanks a lot, guys, and have a good evening, and talk to you soon. I will try to follow up with a similar event again one day.